Hello, Chris Wild, Professional Development Consultant. This is part two of a two-part video series that I'm doing. It's my small contribution in helping people who have an investment in trying to beat this awful, pernicious, parasitical, pestilent pandemic that is COVID-19. If you are a team leader, a nurse, a charge nurse, a hospital administrator, politician, journalist, it doesn't matter, parent, school teacher, principal, this video can be of value to you. If you've not seen my first video, I strongly recommend that you take a look at the first video, because then this one will make sense. It's all about the green hat, extracting the qualities of the green hat. And the first video is all about the 6 thinking hats, which is a method for thinking and communication. So you really need to see that one in order for this one to make sense. All right, I'm in isolation in New Jersey, and I've been here for 2 weeks, and I will be here probably for another 2 weeks, which means I do not have my usual audio setup and video setup. I normally have high-def equipment, but I don't have that. So this video is rather granular and raw and unedited. So I hope you just kind of go along with that for now. I'll tell you, one of the things I've been seeing as I've been watching the news in recent days or weeks now is that when experts or politicians are interviewed, they're often being interviewed because they, like me, are in self-isolation. It's interesting that they like to be interviewed in front of their own private library at home. So here I am at the beach house, and unfortunately, my library here is very limited. I've got 3 books. I've got John Steinbeck's The Pearl, very good. And I've got, by Dr. Tim Cantifer, Depressive Illness, The Curse of the Strong. And for a bit of late night reading, I've got a Daniel Steele novel. So that's my library. Excellent. So there we go. Now I join the elite. All right, so creativity. This is all about creativity and creative problem solving. And remember from the last video, we're at point A. This is a very, very bad place that we're at. And we're trying to get to point B, which is a better place. And we're trying to construct a bridge full of creative ideas and creative energy that hopefully will facilitate ideas and solutions to get to this place. And remember, the bridge only needs to be constructed to withstand one crossing in order to affect a solution or a desired outcome. All right, so let's talk a little bit. I'm going to divide this video into 2. First half is going to be talking about creativity as a subject on its own, and then the second half is going to be me sharing a couple of creative tools that will help you to facilitate creativity and bring some creative energy in your meetings that lead to solutions that lead to desirable outcomes. Okay, so that makes sense, right? Let me start by sharing a story with you. It goes back about 20 years. I was working as a consultant for a financial company in the Wall Street area in New York. And I had in my hand, I remember at the time, their annual report. And splashed across in big letters was the word innovation and creativity. So I said to some of the managers who I was working with at the time, how important is creativity and innovation in your company? You clearly have it splashed across the front page of your annual report. And they replied to me, Chris, very important. So my next question, quite logically, was, well, what do your employees do to facilitate creativity? You know, what tools do they use to drive the business forward? And they couldn't answer. It was as if the question had reduced them to stupefied peasants. Well, let me explain this a little bit. It's quite understandable. People in business, and especially in government as well, in public sector organizations, they don't understand creativity, and they think it is something that is innate to artistry. So people that are composers, musicians, screenwriters, graphic designers, poets, painters, people like that, people in business think that these sort of people have sole proprietorship to creativity. Well, that's a myth. It's a misconception. Creativity there may be people that are creative. That's great. That doesn't prevent other people who have other skills it doesn't prevent them from learning creative techniques and tools and applying those tools. So that's something I want to dispel straight away, that creativity can be taught and used by anybody. It's not just for the artistic types. Something else as well about creativity is budgets. In most organizations, and especially all organizations, budgets are allocated, and budgets are finite. Furthermore, budgets are rarely changed during the fiscal year or the 4 quarters of the year. Once they're allocated, that's it. You have to make do with the resources that you have. With creativity, it's different. In fact, it's opposite. You have an unlimited budget of creative energy within you. And furthermore, with creativity, you often find that you have high impact, low cost. So a lot of times you can use your creative energies with teams of people, and you can come up with some great ideas. And all it requires is a willingness and an intent to be creative. Remember from the last video, if you want to change something, or you feel the need to change something, you will. And if you don't, you'll find an excuse. So being creative is about having the willingness to learn creativity and use the tools, and having the intent to do so, and understanding that it gives you high value for a very low cost. All right, so furthermore, staying with this for a second, this kind of organizational perception of creativity, it's worth pointing out as well that early industrialists that chaired, that were the chief executives of some of the big companies, were the designers, if you like, and the architects of the organization. People like Westinghouse, Edison, Ford, and then later, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Anita Roddick with the Body Shop. These people designed their own products. They designed and engineered their own inventions, and they pioneered their own innovations. And so they obviously chaired their own companies. And in doing so, an air of creativity permeated throughout the organization. And that's a good thing. Unfortunately, today, organizations are typically run not by inventors and engineers and architects of design. They're run by accountants and lawyers. And the price we pay for that, of course, is that the organization then does not have an air of creativity that permeates through the organization. If anything, has airs of restriction. So there's financial restriction, there's a focus on short-term profitability and gain and performance. And so creativity becomes very stifled in these organizations. Now that we're facing this awful pandemic, I'm very pleased to see that layers of bureaucracy and red tape have been lowered, so that people that have intelligent minds can actually get on with solving the issue. And it's very encouraging to see, for example, a 4,000-bed hospital be constructed in 2 weeks in either Central Park in New York or the Excel Centre in the UK. It just goes to show you what humanity can do when you strip layers of bureaucracy and red tape away. Okay, so how do we be creative then? Well, in the seminars that I've delivered over decades, I've taught creativity on multiple continents, and I've done thousands of seminars. I'm sure I have. I've lost count to thousands of people. One of the questions I will put to my group at some point during the day is very similar to the question that I put to the managers on Wall Street, as I alluded to earlier. And that is, what creative tools do you use in your organization? And usually the answer is brainstorming. Well, brainstorming is not actually a very good creative tool. In fact, it's not creative at all. By its nature, brainstorming is a regurgitation of existing ideas. Let me explain. If you take road congestion, which is something that we all typically endure, and we all suffer from road congestion. One of the things I like to do in my seminars is I'll say to the group, okay, give me 5 minutes brainstorming and come up with creative ways to ease road congestion. And I'm actually going to ask you to do that now. So I'm going to pause this movie. Well, actually, I can't pause this movie, but you can. So stop the movie right now, and for 2 or 3 minutes, brainstorm ways of easing road congestion. And then I'll be right back with you. Okay, I'm assuming that you've done that exercise. I'm curious to see, or I wonder, what ideas you've come up with. I wonder if they're the same sort of ideas that are generated by the participants in my seminars. Typically, I give you the top 4 or 5 that I get time and time again. Carpool or car share, smaller cars, wider roads, and we all like to back a winner once in a while, better use of public transportation. So if you've got any of those ideas, you can see that brainstorming isn't really, it isn't a way of coming up with completely new ideas. It's a way of regurgitating old ideas that are already out there. Now, there's nothing wrong with brainstorming. It's a good starting point, and I'd encourage any team to begin with brainstorming, because you may come up with an idea that makes the problem go away, whatever problem you're working on. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But what happens when you're discussing a problem with your team around a table, and the ideas that you're coming up with through brainstorming are disappointing, or they're not good enough? What do you do then? Well, the answer lies in a story which I'll have to take you to Paris for. So if you don't mind joining me now, and we'll hop over the Atlantic, and I'll take you to a world-class Parisian hotel. Now, this building is very old, it has many floors, and it has a problem, or at least the hotel management have a problem. The problem is that too many guests are complaining that the elevators, assuming you live in the USA, lifts, if you live in the UK or elsewhere, the lifts or the elevators, pick your flavor, are too slow, because the elevators are old, they're safe, and they're operable, but they're old and tired. So guests wait a long time before a car arrives. And so, using traditional creative thinking and brainstorming, the hotel management have a team meeting to discuss what they can do. And at this meeting, they apply a standard solution to a standard problem, which means that they'll put out to tender, if you like, an instruction for engineering companies to offer proposals to install a brand new lift installation. Now, this would require hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars or euros, francs, and it would require the hotel lose a lot of revenue because it would have to close during the engineering. So it's not particularly desirable, but that seems to be the only solution. Or is it? I'm going to introduce now a technique. I suppose this is the second part of the video. I'm going to give you something that is far more powerful than brainstorming, and yet so simple and easy to use. I'm going to introduce something called a random word technique. Random word technique is very simple. You use a dictionary. You can use a thesaurus. You can use a magazine, a newspaper. But the idea is that you open the book at random page, and then scan down until you come to a noun. Now, nouns are better to work with than verbs or adjectives. They're just easier to, or phrases. They're just easier to use. And so what you want to do, you want to take that noun, and then take that noun and put it on the table for everybody to look at. Now let's go back to this hotel, because this is what happened. And so the word that was extracted from the dictionary was mirror, as in mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful of all? Clearly not me. All right, so we've got this word mirror. Now the idea is that you use the word mirror, and it might have absolutely nothing to do with the problem at all. It's quite illogical in foresight. But what we can do is we can use the word mirror like a toy. It's pliable. It's like plasticine. We play with it intellectually. And so you take this word and you play with it. And that's what they did. That's what the hotel management did. And one person said, mirror, that gives me an idea. What if we were to install full-length vanity mirrors on every floor of the hotel? And the idea being that we can shift people's thinking from time, how long it takes for the car to arrive, to personal vanity, how they look. Now it's logical in hindsight. And so you get that aha moment. Now that's exactly what they did. And for a fraction of the cost, and without the need for a contractor to come in and do a complete reinstallation of the lifts and elevators, they were able to make the problem go away because the percentage of guest complaints went down substantially. So they made the problem go away. Now that's an example of getting more value from an intelligent mind than when it's otherwise, if you like, what's the word I'm looking for? Than when it's prevented from functioning at a high level because of traditional thinking. You block your thinking because you're thinking traditionally. So the random word, if you like, unlocks that potential. It unlocks that intellectual potential that we all have. All right, so that's one example. Okay, so brainstorming is information coming in, and it's established patterns that get reinforced, and using something like the random word allows us to jump across those patterns and see a problem from a wholly new angle. There's a term for it. It's called lateral thinking, and that's what lateral thinking is. It's setting up a provocation. It's looking at a problem, but using a completely new and a completely different starting point that is unrelated to the problem. It's a very, very simple creative technique, easy to use, easy to apply, and again, the effects can be substantial. High impact, low cost. Let me give you another example. This is what I call inversion. This is where you take something that's logical and you tip it upside down. So an example might be traditional thinking. All hospitals treat COVID-19 patients, which is what they're doing. So that's traditional thinking. But we can tip that upside down and view it from a completely different angle. That's the provocation. That's making a lateral jump across the neural pathways of the brain. So how do we do that? Well, we say the opposite. So we say hospitals do not treat COVID-19 patients. That's illogical in foresight. But if we use it as a toy, and it's pliable, and it's like plasticine, and we put that on the table to see whether it stimulates people's thinking, it may not. What's important is you make the effort. And if you get nowhere with this, you can try other words or you can try other inversions. But the idea is that you use that phrase or that word to stimulate ideas. So you might say that we'll have some hospitals that do not treat COVID-19 patients. And so from that idea is the concept of having some hospitals that will not get involved in COVID-19, and it is staffed by people who can do outpatients, who can do regular checkups, who can do some minor elective surgery, so that the world continues some degree of normality. And maybe in order to keep that disease free or virus free, there's a series of filters that patients go in and out of, and that includes staff too. Now, I'm not saying that this is a good idea or a bad idea. It's simply an idea. The idea can be subject to further treatment under the yellow hat and the black hats, maybe even the red hat. But it's the idea of making an effort. And remember, with this kind of thinking, we're doing it in parallel. So if you've got 20 people around a table and they're trying to think through a problem, we're all wearing the green hat at the same time. We're not adversarial. It's not about this person saying, I've got an idea, lay the idea on the table, and then this person shoots down the idea. We're not doing that. We're wearing the hats in parallel. If you haven't seen my first video, you would have to view that to understand the concept. But this video is all about extracting the qualities of the green hat. So there's a couple of ideas, okay? And there's more information on the interweb about lateral thinking. I strongly encourage you to research it. There's a couple of things I just want to close out with here, and that is communication styles. Yeah. I particularly like the four communication styles that really come from the work of Carl Jung. The four styles are analytical, driver, amiable, and expressive. Let me give you an example of this. We all have a blend of those four styles. And I like the four styles more than other psychometric assessment tools like DISC, Myers-Briggs, Herman Brain Dominance. I like the four styles. I don't like the other ones. They tend to pigeonhole people into categories and be restrictive. I don't like that. I find them cumbersome. But that's just a personal red hat opinion. Okay, four communication styles. People who are dominantly analytical, they tend to be people that like data. They like questions. They like information. They like knowledge. They like to gather as much information as possible. They like analysis of information. They like report writing. So these people can be accountants, they can be lawyers, they can be auditors, things like that. Then you have drivers. Drivers are the silverbacks of society. These individuals are go-getters, they're entrepreneurs, they punch above their weight, they're movers, they get things done. They're highly motivated, self-starting, self-motivated. Now these people tend to be salespeople, entrepreneurs, leaders. Then you get amiables. Amiables are all about relationships. They're about creating relationships and nurturing relationships. So that these people tend to be, maybe you find them in HR, social work, counseling, things like that. And then you have expressives. And expressives are big picture people, conceptual thinkers, creative thinkers, have a tendency to start one thing and then drift off and like a butterfly and start getting involved in other things, so they can be a bit unfocused. Now the thing is, you'll have a blend of all these people around your table, and what will happen, particularly in using the six thinking hats, is that the analyticals will sit there quietly until you put on the white hat or the black hat, because that's their dominant hat. The drivers will sit there until somebody puts on the blue hat and can make a decision, because they're blue hat wearers. The amiables tend to be very emotionally driven and driven by the intuition, so they like the red hat. And then the expressives are the green hat and yellow hat, so they tend to be, very creative and so on and so forth. The point is, we don't want people thinking like that. That's not the idea of this. What we want from analyticals is to say, yes, you're very good under the white hat and the black hat, but you need to be good under the other four. So learn how to be fluent and thorough under the other four. So you give a full performance of thinking, not just your dominance. Same with drivers. Okay, you could be good under the blue hat, but we want you to be good under the other five. Amiables, very good under the red hat. We need you to be complete thinkers under the other five. And same for the expressive. We want you to learn the other five. So what happens is you have people on a team, and although they have a dominant style of thinking, or they have a certain talent in an aspect of thinking, we're actually asking for a full complement of thinking. We want people to be analytical. We want people to be creative. We want people to be judgmental. We want people to make decisions, and so on and so forth. So you use all the hats. I think that's pretty much it. Remember, as I said in my other video, if you think you need to do something, you'll find a way of doing it. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. I just want to close out with this because I think it's really important. I'm really, really impressed with what humanity is achieving right now. It's really quite heartening to see so many people doing so many extraordinary things. And I think there's much more beauty in people than there is ugliness. And I think we're seeing that. Long may it continue. It's absolutely wonderful to see so many people doing such extraordinarily positive things in the face of adversity. So that's pretty much it. I'm Chris Wild. I'm a professional development consultant. I'll put my details at the end of this. Please feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to help you think through issues if you have them. I'm in isolation for another 2 weeks, so I'll still be here. And there is no way that I'm going to be wasting my time reading this. So please get in touch. Okay, signing off. Good luck to you all.